Alright, you lot. We're about to dive into why XDefiant is bloody brilliant and why some daft muppets can't wrap their heads around it. Because apparently, if a game doesn't have millions of players glued to it every single day, it's automatically crap. Oh, we're gonna get into it. But before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe and all that bollocks. Yeah, I know, it's a bit everyone says it, but it helps channel grow and lets me keep setting these delusional whiners straight. Now grab your tea, or your pint if it's that time, because this one's going to get spicy. Right then, let's talk about this absolute twonk who reckons XDefiant is trash because it can't keep 20,000 players a day. Seriously, who's counting? What is this? Olympics of player counts? Listen, mate, if you're out here judging a game's quality based on some dodgy stat you pulled off internet, you've already lost plot. Tom Henderson? Right, because journalists are never wrong. Like, remember that time when they said COD were going to shut down and Black Ops 6 were cancelled? Exactly, they didn't. So what makes you think this guy's gospel? Look, I get it, you read an article somewhere. Reports claim XDefiant struggles to keep players. Ooh, spooky. It's like every time a game dips in numbers for 5 minutes, internet suddenly wants to play Funeral March. Yet here we are, month after month, XDefiant's still kicking, and Ubisoft's still rolling out content faster than these keyboard warriors can bash out another whiny Reddit post. Newsflash, just cause you see 20k here, don't mean that's global count. Xbox, PC, PlayStation, it's all in mix. But don't let facts get in the way of a good whinge, right? And if you're sitting there thinking, well, if it's so good, why aren't millions playing it every day? Listen carefully. Not every game has to be a Call of Duty level behemoth to be good. Some of us actually prefer games that aren't crawling with every sweaty triad on planet. We play because we enjoy it, not because it tops some irrelevant leaderboard that only you care about. So yeah, I'll take my 60,000 player community any day. At least they're here for the game, not just to get the dopamine hit before jumping ship to next trend. So now we gotta tackle Tom Henderson Fan Club. Apparently, if Tom Henderson says it, it's basically carved in stone, right? Bloke could tell you Queen's a lizard, and some of these mugs would believe it. Tom Henderson said XDefiant's dying. Well, Tom also says he has sources. Oh, sources? Is that code for some bloke I met in pub who's still playing Black Ops 2 and thinks he's a game analyst? Because these sources, or is, seem as legit as a £3 note. It's like believing your mate when he says he's seen Bigfoot without even showing you a blurry picture. It's the thing about these so-called insiders. Half of it's guesswork, and other half is pure speculation. I've got more proof in my kitchen bin than some of these articles have in their headlines. They write something dramatic, sprinkle in a few vague stats, and suddenly internet's on fire with gamers screeching like they've just found out Santa ain't real. You know what I trust? Actual developers. Mark Rubin, man behind XDefiant, has already come out and said it's doing fine. Yeah, that's right, a guy who's working on game. Not some journalist getting paid per click to stir up drama. Rubin's not out here doing damage control, he's telling you straight. They're still making content, they've got plans for year 2, and servers are humming along. Does that sound like a game on live support to you? Or maybe Tom's next story is Mark Rubin secretly a time traveller? Who knows? And here's another thing. With all due respect, where's proof, Tom? You can't just wave your hands and say sources say, like you're in some courtroom drama. I'm not asking for his sources to be named and shamed, I'm asking for actual data. You can't just claim XDefiant's tanking and then scuttle off into shadows without backing it up. At the end of the day, mate, Tom's article is as solid as wet tissue paper. It's noise. All hype, no substance. And honestly, if your best argument for a game's failure is Tom said so, you might want to reevaluate your life choices. So here's a gem that never gets old. If it's a lie, why don't Ubisoft sue everyone? Right, because that's exactly what a multi-billion-dollar company should do. Spend its time chasing every half-baked article on internet like it's some kind of legal whack-a-mole. Let's break this down for slow ones in back, shall we? Ubisoft don't need to play nanny to every bad tech that pops up online. The idea that they should be suing left and right because of a rumour is absolutely mental. What do people expect? Mark Rubin storming into courtrooms, waving a PowerPoint, screaming, "Your Honour, I'd like to address this twat who thinks our game's dead." Ubisoft's not sweating over this kind of drivel, because they know what they're sitting on. A bloody solid game with a dedicated player base. And here's kicker. If Ubisoft did go after every Tom, Dick and Harry who spouted off about the games, we wouldn't have games. They'd be too busy running around with legal teams trying to quash every post by some keyboard warrior who thinks they know better than people who actually make games. Also, let's not pretend that filing lawsuits left and right would even be worth it. It's like trying to kill a mosquito with a sledgehammer. Whole defamation argument is laughable too. Yeah, defamation is a thing, if you can prove what someone said was knowingly false and caused damage. But Ubisoft has better things to do, like, I don't know, creating more content for XDefiant, rather than trying to prove in court that some no-name article with no verifiable sources ain't worth the time. And the fact that these articles are still up, that's not cause they're true. It's cause no one cares enough to go on a legal crusade over something that's ultimately just noise. The real metric you should be paying attention to is that Ubisoft ain't even bothered. Why? Because they're too busy moving forward, making updates and delivering content. The game's still here, people are still playing, and devs are still building. If all, the fact that they're not responding to this nonsense just shows how much faith they have in their own product. So to Ubisoft Should Sue crew, get your head a wobble. The fact that they're not taking action just proves they're securing what they've built. It's called confidence. You might want to look into it. Classic obsession. Player counts. If game's not breaking records, it's a failure. It's like some of these muppets are sitting there with spreadsheets waiting to declare a game dead the moment it drops below a magic number. Do these people even play games? Or do they just spend the time crunching numbers and crying about stats like they're running a Wall Street firm? Let's be real for a second. XDefiant's player base ain't shrinking into oblivion like some dramatic internet doomsayers would have you believe. We're talking about a game with 1.5 million active players over the last 30 days. That's an average of 52,000 players daily, by the way. But no, because it's not hitting some imaginary 20 million player count, suddenly it's on live support, right? And here's kicker. Player counts don't mean shit unless you're running a game that's built around a massive MMO infrastructure. Newsflash. XDefiant's not World of Warcraft. We're not talking about a game that needs to keep 10 million people glued to it every second or every day just to survive. It's a free-to-play FPS. A shooter, for God's sake. People jump in, have a few games and jump out. That's nature at beast. You can't compare it to these massive games that require a horde of addicts just to justify their existence. And let's not forget this absolute nugget of stupidity. If it's not over 20,000 players a day, it must be failing. Mate, are you daft? Majority of shooters on market don't even hit that consistently. And they're still alive and kicking. But suddenly, XDefiant's player base has become ill these jokers want to die on, like it's only metric that matters. Never mind that games getting updates, new content, and a community that's clearly enjoying themselves. No, it's all about these sacred numbers. Let me break it down for you. Most games fluctuate in player numbers. It's normal, it happens, and it's not a sign of imminent death. XDefiant's numbers are stable, and more importantly, community that's playing is sticking with it because it's fun. And isn't that point of gaming? To have fun? Or have these stat-obsessed twats forgotten that in the quest to judge games' success by graphs and spreadsheets? So here's a thought. Maybe, just maybe, game's doing fine, even if it's not Call of Duty levels are massive. Because last I checked, thousands of people still gear toss about XDefiant. And that's more than enough. Oh, and this one's bloody priceless. Mark Rubin don't own Ubisoft, so his words don't count. Right, because if you're not CEO or sitting on Ubisoft throne, apparently everything you say is just hot air. Do these people even understand how game development works? Or do they think Rubin's just some T-boy in studio, popping up every now and then to tweet nonsense? It's reality check for clueless. Mark Rubin ain't some random intern. Man's an executive producer. You know, bloke in charge are actually making game happen. He might not own Ubisoft, But it sure as hell has a massive say in what goes on in XDefiant. It's like captain steering ship. If you don't think his words matter, then you've clearly spent too much time getting your information from internet forums rather than actual industry knowledge. And this whole "he doesn't own games so it's irrelevant" argument, well, that's just idiocy wrapped up in ignorance. You know what? Most game developers don't own companies they work for, but that don't stop them from knowing what the hell's going on with their own projects. Matt Rubin's job is to keep game alive, to make sure it's running smoothly, to push updates, to oversee content, and to engage with community. Guy's practically in trenches with players, giving us insight, updates, and clarification on where game's heading. That's more than you can say for most execs out there. Argument that he's not qualified to speak because he's not Ubisoft CEO or founder is like your local surgeon can't give you medical advice unless they're also head of hospital. Absolute bollocks. But here's real kicker. These twats who throw around "he don't own Ubisoft" argument act like Rubin's just out there chatting nonsense for fun. He's not doing damage control, he's laying out facts. He's telling you game's not cancelled, that it's performing well, and that team is actively working on year 2 content. You think a guy in his position would say all that if there were even a whiff at game tanking? Come off it. He's not playing PR games, he's giving us inside scoop. You know, kind of thing we actually want from developers, instead of radio silence while rumour mill runs wild. So next time you want to throw around "Mark Rubin didn't own Ubisoft" line, ask yourself this: who would you rather listen to? Bloke actually making game, or some random article filled with sources that are more elusive than a unicorn on roller skates? Rubin's want it now, and if you can't accept that, maybe stick to solitaire, mate. And that final stroke of genius: where's proof? Ah, yes, the internet detectives demanding ironclad evidence. As if Ubisoft's going to mail them a personal dossier with game's full analytics and a detailed account of every player who's ever logged in. These people act like Ubisoft's hiding Ark at Covenant, when in reality, they're just not wasting time spoon-feeding information to conspiracy theorists who think player counts are some sort of holy grail. Let's make one thing crystal clear. Just cause you don't have access to data don't mean it's not real. This ain't some kind of shadowy behind-the-scenes plot to convince everyone that XDefiant is thriving while secretly tanking. Numbers are out there, and they're good enough to shut down Doom and Gloom Brigade. We're talking about 1.5 million active players in the last 30 days and an average of 52,000 daily players. And those are just rough numbers based on actual community efforts, not some nebulous insider sources that these keyboard warriors cling to like gospel. But now, that's not enough for these lot. They want Ubisoft to roll out red carpet, invite them into office, and personally hand over live player data with accompanying PowerPoint presentation. Newsflash, Sherlock, Ubisoft don't owe you out. Just cause you can't Google exact concurrent players at 3 AM on a Thursday don't mean game's failing. It means Ubisoft's busy doing something a bit more important, like, I don't know, developing damn game. And here's irony. Same people demanding proof wouldn't even know what to do with it if they had it. They'd find a way to twist it or just ignore it altogether. Because that's what happens when your entire argument is based on negativity. These are types who see 50,000 players a day and say, well, it's not 100,000, so it's clearly dying. It's a lose-lose with these clowns. Because the confirmation bias is stronger than evidence in front of them. Also, let's not pretend like Ubisoft's going to run to court every time some blogger with inside sources posts a hit piece. Companies don't move like that unless something's seriously damaging the bottom line. And spoiler alert, it's not. Why? Because XDefiant's doing just fine, and they've got bigger things to focus on than catering to demands at vocal minority who won't be happy no matter what. So to proof or it didn't happen, Brigade, sit down, fire up game and have some fun. Or don't, because guess what? Game's going to carry on regardless of whether you believe numbers or not. Right, you lot. This debate is far from over. Twonks like this never seem to get tired of flogging the same dead horse, and I'm always ready to put them back in the place. Now if you made it this far, you're either loving rants or desperately looking for unsub button. Either way, don't forget to smash that like button like it owes you money. Hit subscribe so you don't miss me laying into next twit who thinks they can tell me XDefiant's dying. And finally, leave your comments and questions below. Cause who knows? I might just feature your brilliant thoughts or your absolute nonsense on the channel. Keep playing, keep smashing objectives. and I'll see you next time, you magnificent